Honda has seen a dramatic sales slide this year globally. The biggest problem for Honda, this is a reality, it doesn't have any electric cars for sale that are compelling and that it really makes en masse. It doesn't do it at all. And Honda is saying it's going to reverse its massive sales slide worldwide with some new internal combustion engine vehicles that are going to sell like crazy and solve all of its problems. Sales for Honda are down by 22% in China this year. Now, China is Honda's biggest car market in the world. However, in the first 6 months of the year, Honda have sold around 500,000 cars. In 2020, Honda sold 1.7 million cars in China. If it's lucky, it'll hit, around 60% of those numbers by the end of this year. However, in other places, the sales slide is even worse. Here in Australia, Honda is being well and truly outsold by Tesla. I mean, Tesla has literally, in Australia, 2 models for sale, period. The Model Y, the Model 3. In fact, the Model Y hasn't even been on sale for the whole year. And still, Honda is getting spanked. Its sales have dropped at a remarkable pace. Hello, my friends. Great to see you. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Sam Evans. Sales in Australia in particular are quite interesting here. It's a very interesting market. Look at Australia. I know I'm Australian, I'm biased. Yes, that's true. However, here in Australia, we have access now to electric cars from China. And that is what Honda, Toyota, Nissan, Mazda, Subaru, all the Japanese automakers have to contend with. A lot of those models have just really come on sale recently. I mean, we're looking at now 3 different electric cars, all costing less than $30,000, which are all very good. 3 different models. Plus, Teslas are now very, very affordable. We've got other models here as well and more coming. We've got the Mustang Mach-E coming, which is going to be quite affordable because Ford needs to dump a lot of stock. It's got a lot of stock sitting around. So it's a different environment here. And that's one Honda has to compete with. And they're saying they're going to compete with this by simply making more internal combustion engine SUVs. Honda Australia's new car sales hit their lowest in 40 years in 2022. While this year, sales are even worse than that 40-year record. You know, the tsunami is coming to Japan. Honda are part of this. Unfortunately, it's going to be an economic devastation in Japan. It's going to have a global effect. There will be, I believe, I'm actually a fairly optimistic person. I think global growth will be massive over the next 10 years. But there will be probably a depression, a huge financial crisis when Japan does have a problem with it won't be able to service its debt. It's already the most indebted country in the history of mankind by a long way, but it relies solely on its automotive industry for its entire, not its entire GDP, but a very, very, very large percentage of its GDP. Once it loses a lot of that, well, look out. Honda Australia is obviously not a massive percentage of Honda's sales, but it's significant. Honda used to be one of the best-selling brands in Australia. But following a switch to non-negotiable prices for fixed new cars, Honda's vehicle sales fell to 14,000 in 2022. That's from a high of 60,000 only 10 years before that. So they've gone from 60,000 down to 14,000. The company is now ranked well outside of the top 10 vehicle manufacturers here in Australia. The same trend is happening to them in China. Honda are hoping to hit 20,000 sales this year, driven by the arrival of 2 new SUVs. When I first saw this, I thought, great, surely one of those will be electric. I was disappointed. Honda says the all-new ZR-V midsize SUV, which launched this month, and the larger new generation CR-V, due very, very soon, will end its 15-year decline and restore the company's former glory. The Honda ZR-V is larger and more expensive than the HR-V small SUV and is smaller than the all-new CR-V due later this year. This will give Honda 2 vehicles in the medium SUV segment, which accounts for almost 1/4 of all new vehicles bought by Australians so far in 2023. 4 variants of the ZR-V are offered. There's a bunch of different turbocharged engines, 2-litre petrol engines, all the same stuff you know about for the last 30 years. Nothing's been really changed according to those engines. Sure, they're a little bit more efficient, they're a little bit more... Sure, they have a little bit fewer emissions, but nothing much has really changed with those engines. Now, what they're contending with and what they're clearly trying to ignore is the fact that there's now some extremely compelling vehicles that are in this exact segment that cost about the same price, they're electric. They're probably going to be a much better ownership proposition. Customers will be looking at those. They'll be saying, do we want the future or do we want the past? You can bet what a lot of people are going to do. Prices range from $40,000 to $55,000 for the RV, which is basically a hybrid, I believe. Sales of the ZRV have started slowly, with only 205 registrations in its first 2 months. Honda says that that will change soon as supply ramps up. So Honda is saying that the only reason that they're having problems selling this new internal combustion crossover is because they don't have enough stock. That's the problem. Some customer deliveries have begun, but the ships with the bulk are later in the year, said Honda's Australia General Manager. The order bank for petrol variants is out to August, when we'll start to get really good supply. The hybrid is out to December, which is when we'll start to get really good supply over the Christmas timeframe. Honda are basically saying the CR-V will resurrect their brand. But the CR-V, to me, is it's just another vehicle, nondescript, internal combustion engine, mid-sized SUV amidst a sea of competitors selling exactly the same thing, offering nothing compelling versus each other. That's what I think. We're really focused on 20,000 sales. That's what we're aiming for. We're going to grow the brand, said Honda. When asked if Honda Australia will add another SUV below or above its 2023 lineup, the company said there were no plans to do so. When asked if they would add an electric SUV, the company didn't respond. With the Civic hatchback and our suite of SUVs, that's our focus for now, said the company. Now, speaking of sedans, a new 11th generation Accord entered production in Ohio. So Honda have been focusing on developing this new internal combustion engine, Honda Accord. This will hit US dealerships later this year and maybe will be sold in other countries as well. Now, guys, in the US, would you really think that people care that much about a new Honda Accord? Is that going to save Honda in the US a new Accord? I mean, I personally don't think it's going to make a single bit of difference. Now, if you're in a right-hand drive market, we won't be getting the Honda Accord at all because they've dropped it from their lineup. Right-hand drive, all countries with right-hand drive, there is no Honda Accord anymore. And the key reason is sedans aren't selling anymore. People don't really buy them, especially internal combustion engine sedans. I mean, the most popular internal combustion engine sedan has been outsold easily this year, the Toyota Camry, by the more expensive Tesla Model 3. In 2022, Honda Japan revealed plans to launch 30 electric vehicles globally by 2030, including 2 new sports cars and an electric ute, potentially. The electric expansion is part of the $30 billion investment is expected to give Honda's global car sales 2 million EV sales per year by 2030 to help the company go all electric by 2040. But considering the fact that, less than 2% of Honda's current global sales are electric cars, they have so far to go to come anywhere near hitting that 2 million EVs per year number. Now, they've got 6.5 years to hit those production numbers, to go from less than 2% to what would be around 50%. I don't think they're even anywhere near on track to hitting those numbers. And I really think they need to be honest with investors and just tell investors the truth, which is the chances of them producing 2 million EVs in 2030 are very, very slim. North America will see its first Honda EV later this year, which is actually a General Motors Ultium vehicle. That's called the Prologue. It'll arrive followed by a mid to large size electric vehicle 2 years later in 2025. Australia apparently is likely to have to wait 5 years to see an electric car from Honda of any type. We don't have any plans at the moment to introduce electric vehicles, said Honda Australia's CEO. When we look at the Australian market's ability to cope with electric vehicles, we don't think it's there. Apparently Australians and people in most other countries around the world don't want EVs. Incredibly, in 2018, Honda sold 51,500 cars in Australia. Last year, they sold 14,000. Amazingly, they still don't recognize the fact that actually customers do want EVs. Doesn't really matter if you tell someone what they do or they don't want. That's what Toyota is doing. You do want this, you don't want that, you should buy this. Honda's doing the same thing. What matters is what is actually selling, what customers want. And that MG, what are they doing? They're giving customers what they want. BYD, same thing. Aura, same thing. Aeon, same thing. Giving customers what they want. If Honda chooses to do the opposite, well, yeah, the writing is on the wall. I think Honda are going to be a shell of themselves by 2030. And unfortunately, it's simply of their own making. It's really the perfect example of the word hubris. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And thank you for watching.